Straight ahead, less than 100 days until Election Day. The stakes are high and the countdown is on. Where do the races stand now? Republicans projecting unity after State Rep Shelley Luther's rally on the Red River. But is the GOP really united? Luther takes our questions about the final 90 days ahead. Democrats need to flip 14 seats to take control of the Texas House. State Rep Christina Morales leading the effort for her party, arguing why this year is different from 2018. And Dallas City Hall faces a painful math problem, a $51 million shortfall, and not much time to fix it. So what gets cut? Councilman Xaren Gracie is here with his answer.
Inside Texas Politics with Jason Whiteley starts now.
Welcome to the program here. I'm Jason Whiteley. Let's begin, as always, with the top political headlines happening across our state. Building data centers in Texas might not be as lucrative as it has been over the last decade or so. The State Senate Finance Committee now appears open to perhaps repealing a state sales tax exemption that data centers get. Lawmakers established that back in 2013 to get those data centers attracted to Texas. But now lawmakers say the state is missing out on more than $3 billion in sales taxes that those data centers would generate. Republican Congressman Lance Gooden now under investigation by the House Ethics Committee in Congress. It's reportedly over some of Gooden's spending, though no one is revealing specifics. The congressman himself calls the investigation, quote, bogus and baseless. House Ethics says it will announce next steps in early November. And two more polls showing James Tallarico leading Ken Paxton in the race for U.S. Senate this fall. A survey from Fox News has Tallarico ahead by 3. Texas Public Opinion Research shows Tallarico leading Paxton by 5 points. Remember, a poll, though, only a snapshot in time and does not predict the outcome of a campaign. But let's start right now with the countdown to November. Republicans putting unity on full display last week with every statewide official or nominee on one stage in Grayson County. State Rep Shelley Luther organized it. Now she is sitting down with us to look at the next 90-something days until the election. Representative, good to see you here.
Good to see you, thanks.
You put virtually every major Republican leader on stage in Sherman on Monday night on the same stage. The message was unity within the Republican Party, but what was the hardest phone call to make?
I don't know if it was hard, but who was the hardest to lure there? Is that what you're trying to say?
Who was it?
Well, honestly, we've been waiting to have Abbott come to our district for a long time because everybody knows the governor and I didn't start off on the same ground, I would say. You know, we were at each other's throats a little bit during COVID.
Well, when you called the governor's office, though, did they bristle at this at all? Or it's hard to get him scheduled. Everyone wants him in different parts of the state.
Yes.
He needs to fundraise. He keeps a busy calendar.
Yes.
But you got him to your district.
It took, we requested, and it took a couple of months to get the answer, which is because they need to see where he is on that day already, and it kind of loop in several events in the same area on the same day. So it's actually just, it fit in our schedule and fit in his. And then as soon as we got him, I started calling the others and saying, I asked the governor first if he would mind that I brought other speakers. Sure. He said no, he didn't mind. And I said, I think I'm going to get told him the list. He's like, you're not, their team's like, yeah, okay. And I'm like, oh, I like that. You know, I like when people tell me, you can't do something. And so it gave me even more energy to do it.
Are you surprised you pull it off?
I am.
Yeah?
I don't say I was surprised. Looking back, I'm like, wow, we did that. But when it was happening, I was like, yeah, we're doing this.
The biggest race on the ballot, Representative, is the U.S. Senate race. I've heard from Republicans, you may have as well, who say, listen, I voted for Cornyn. Paxton's just not my guy. I can't bring myself to vote for him. How concerned are you that they could cost Paxton the election?
I mean, anything's possible, especially in politics. But from what I'm hearing and with the reception that Ken Paxton got at my rally, he's doing great. They love Ken Paxton all over in North Texas.
But he needs to win the independent vote. I mean, clearly Republicans, most Republicans, look like they're on his side, but winning the independent vote is what Republicans never really had trouble with because independents lean right in this state. Mm-hmm. Is it going to be harder for him this year than his predecessors?
I think it'll be close. It's going to be close for sure, and we can't take anything for granted. We can't say this is Texas, we stay red. We need to do the work necessary to make sure that the voters, we have more Republican voters. We just need to get them out. And for that statewide race, we need to make sure that Texans realize, even if you live in a red district like mine, every vote matters for these statewide candidates. You can't just sit at home because I'm safe. You've got to get out, and we've got to make the rural communities get out and vote.
Are you asking Cornyn voters to vote for Paxton or vote against James Tallarico?
Both.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the stuff that Tallarico has said is just loony tunes to me. And yeah, is he a respectable guy? Is he nice when you talk to him and he seems normal? But all of the video clips of him, the words coming out of his mouth is the opposite of what Texas stands for. And I think that he's dug himself a little hole. There's too much footage of him saying crazy things.
And just to make sure I understand the finer point here too, how confident are you that Cornyn voters are going to show up for Paxton? That was a bitter primary we all watched.
It definitely was, but I mean, it's still bitter for Tallarico and the Crockett. So they're going through the same thing. So they each have something to come over, get over the primary. They still have some baggage from that, both of them. Yeah. So I'm saying if the Democrats didn't have any baggage, I probably would be concerned, but right now that baggage is louder than what I'm hearing on the other side.
So they both have baggage. Which person can overcome the baggage then?
That's right.
Representative, good to see you. Thanks for the time.
Thank you very much.
All right, let's bring in the roundtable to talk about the politics of this. Bud Kennedy is here from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. Natalie Haddad, political reporter at WFAA in Dallas, and our friend Ashley Godot from KVUE in Austin, the political director there. Bud, let's start with you. Two bad polls for Ken Paxton in 1 week. One of those polls from Fox News here. What do you think we're going to see next from the Paxton campaign?
Well, everything is laid out in front of Ken Paxton. All he has to do is run a traditional Republican campaign in Texas. He hasn't talked about oil and gas. He hasn't talked about guns. He has a message about affordability now, but it doesn't seem very punchy. He has a new commercial where he doesn't really speak forcefully. He doesn't really sound assertive. Everything is in front of Ken Paxton. If he can put a campaign together, it may take some reorganization to do that.
And Natalie, we're less than 100 days until the election, and this campaign is really about to shift into high gear.
They're going to have to, because people who didn't know Tallarico before definitely know who he is now, and he's clearly making gains. When you look at the polls, these numbers are only getting more and more competitive, and I think what we are seeing is that Paxton's campaign is going to have to try harder than maybe they anticipated initially.
I think there's no doubt about that, Ashley, and I would fully expect some, out-of-state money or third-party money to come in and help Paxton to turn these numbers around.
I mean, you would think, but we haven't seen that happen yet, right? I think there's almost this game of chicken when it comes to those outside dollars, those Washington dollars, to see who is going to help him win. And maybe they're looking for a winning strategy before they just throw some money behind him. Are they seeing that? That's the big question.
We shall see 90 days out. All right, up next here, the Democratic side when we come back on Inside Texas Politics. Welcome back to Inside Texas Politics. Now to the other side. Texas Democrats need to win 14 seats to take control in the state house. Before you say no way, remember they won a dozen seats in 2018 when Beto was on the ballot during Trump's last midterm. State Rep Christina Morales is a Democrat from Houston who chairs the Texas House Democratic Campaign Committee. Representative, thank you for being here. We are less than 100 days from the November election. Lots of momentum right now, but Democrats have said for a long time that Texas is in play. What evidence is there this year besides enthusiasm?
And Texas is in play. We noticed that during the primary election when more Democrats came out in many of the districts that we're running in than Republicans. So people are excited, and when our candidates are knocking on the door, they feel the frustration with the leadership, the Republican leadership in Texas right now, and they are ready for change.
Let's talk specific seats here. Democrats are targeting a number of Republicans in the Texas House. Now that we're inside of 100 days here, some of these races are coming into focus, but in which seats do you think Democrats have the best shot right now?
Definitely in South Texas. I'm currently in the RGB right now. South Texas, was duped by the Trump administration and Republicans when it comes to immigration policy. And so those folks are definitely ready for change. We also have in the Dallas area, we have some moderate Republicans who are also gaining frustration from their constituency because, listen, they still voted for these crazy immigration laws and they voted against their public schools. Let's not forget that. Every Republican who's on the ballot, who's an incumbent, has a record of voting against our public schools and funneling billions of dollars to private schools. So listen, our mission is to flip the Texas House. That's what the goal is, and that's what we're working towards.
And to do that, Democrats would need to win 14 seats. I mean, that's a lofty goal. Last time the Democrats won that many or close to that many was 12 seats back in 2018.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you brought that up because in 2018, we did not have the infrastructure that we have now. But we have the infrastructure now in place. I've been traveling around the state since January, making sure our candidates have what they need, the training that they need, that we're setting up block walks, that we're doing phone banks, and that we're doing call time. So things are different this time around. And when we have some amazing candidates at the top of the ticket, listen, I think this is the year, and this is the best opportunity to pull it off in a second Trump midterm.
Affordability seems like it has emerged as the #1 issue for Texas voters this fall. Give me at least two things that Democrats would do to make this state more affordable.
Listen, we are going to prioritize people over billionaires. And we've seen that here recently with data centers and, Elon Musk getting every tax break known to man. And why do the Republicans continue to support billionaires and billionaire companies? It's because that's where they get their campaign donations from. And we do want to help our seniors who their biggest asset is their home and they only have one of them. We're thinking about those people who have to live in an apartment because that's their only choice right now. And those are students. Those are people who are building their careers. And those are the people that we are going to be focused on. And that's who we're talking to at the door. And that's how we're going to get across the finish line and flip the Texas House.
Representative Morales, thank you for the time.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Wednesday morning, Dallas City Council gets back to work after its summer break. Top priority, closing a $51 million budget shortfall for next year. That likely means cuts and definitely some tough choices here. Councilman Xaren Gracie up next with us. Councilman, good to see you here.
Thank you.
Dallas faces a $51 million hole in the budget here.
Yes.
Do you expect this is going to result in any job losses?
It's hard to say. I worked for the city for 16 years. We've gone through several ebbs and flows of the budget. Sometimes it does, but one thing I know, the city has done a good job of trying to keep as many employees as possible when we go through these type of crunches. So for those, it may not be in the same position, but we do a good job of trying to keep them employed with the city.
You've been around City Hall for a number of years.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. Over the last decade or so, the city payroll, I'm told, has grown, but the population hasn't matched that. Mm-hmm. What's going on at City Hall? Why is the payroll being beefed up?
I think you have a lot of executives coming in, and I'll be quite honest. You've heard this term before where, maybe we're a little top heavy. I think that's something I'm going to be looking into. Maybe not necessarily in terms of the number of executives, but what we're actually paying them and ensuring that it's right with the market from there, but also making sure that we're doing what we can to fill this gap.
$51 million is still a big hole to fill. It's a fraction of the $2 billion budget, but it's still a big hole to fill.
It is.
How else could council make up for some of this? If job cuts might be on the table, that wouldn't be all of it, would it?
No, you have to look at the other side of this, and I'm glad the mayor actually said this, but there's a revenue side of this, and looking at what we can do on the other side to bring more money in to the city, whether that's through the film industry or through property taxes, all these different other areas where we have to bring revenue, and we need to work on doing it, meeting them on that side of it too.
But nobody wants to pay more property taxes.
Nobody wants to pay more property taxes, and we've done a good job of reducing the property tax for the last 10 years, which is a good thing. And it is good for business. But at what point, right? We're at that point where we have to take a serious look at what we're doing and how we're serving the citizens of the Dallas, and making the tough decisions.
I don't want to overstate or misstate, but are job cuts on the table to close this $51 million budget deficit as far as you're concerned? Are job cuts on the table?
That would be the last thing I would want to do. Again, I want to be able to preserve as many jobs as possible in how we do this, which again is why I want to look at what are some of those other things we can do, be it revenue, be it salaries at the top, to really close some of those gaps there.
You're one of the votes that have said that, listen, it's probably time to move away from City Hall to redevelop this site down here. What would it take to get you to change your mind on that, to say, maybe we should stay here after all, maybe we should redevelop some other parts of the central business district?
I've said from the very beginning, my preference is, just because I've worked in that building for so long, it's not a functional building as it relates to today's government and how we function. For that reason, I think we should leave. What it's going to take for me to reconsider is what I've said all along. What do the numbers say? What does it cost us? We're talking about a $50 million budget gap right now. At the end of the day, what is it going to cost us? And do we stand to benefit more by moving, either from the revenue that comes from whatever lands in that space, whether we relocate into a place and we end up getting revenue from tenants, whatever those opportunities are, I think we need to consider that, especially now, considering what our budget situations is. And yes, those decisions are 4 and 5 years down the road, but these are the things we need to be talking about now, and sometimes functioning like we're in a budget crisis, whether we are or we're not.
Councilman, it's good to see you.
Thank you so much.
The roundtable is ready when we come back. All right, time now for Reporters Roundtable to put the headlines in perspective. Bud, Natalie, and Ashley all back with us here. Bud, let's start with you and the National Democratic Party having that divide over a number of issues: Israel, progressivism, and acceptance of the Democratic Socialist faction, which we have seen growing inside the Democratic Party. Is that going to affect James Tallarico or Texas in any way, considering how close the Senate race is here?
It affects James Tallarico because that faction brings a lot of the energy and momentum to the Democratic Party. They don't go out and say we're the Democratic Socialists because that's a losing name in Texas at this point. I think we only have a couple of office holders on a local level who've called themselves Democratic Socialists. They're in Texas, they're just not going to be out front.
And it does seem that way, Natalie, that the Democratic Socialists inside the Democratic Party do have the momentum right now, or at least the megaphone.
They do, and I think they are taking a page out of things that we are seeing outside of the state, and that is only fueling them. But I agree with Bud. I think using that word socialist behind Democratic Party is a losing term, and so I think they'll have to be very careful with how they present themselves in this way. And
Ashley, what an easy target for Republicans if they're looking for a way in to go against Democrats. Having Democratic Socialists there, it writes itself for a campaign ad, especially when the independent voters in this state already lean to the right.
Yeah, but I think the problem is that if you start to hear the Republican Party yelling and screaming about that, I don't know how much that resonates with independents. Look, at the end of the day, that's who these campaigns are really going after, right? The independents. And I don't know that they really listen to that noise. They're going to be listening more to what it is that James Tallarico is saying.
The policies obviously should be paramount for all of these candidates indeed. But let's talk about the midterm convention that the Republican National Committee is putting on in Dallas. It's next month. But prices are dropping to participate here.
Well, the fact that there were prices to begin with tells you this isn't really any kind of a convention. It's a big fundraiser. And so the price have been cut from $20,000 to $10,000. I think for $5,000, you might be able to get in the arena. And, some of the other states have cut money, but I don't think anybody was trying to charge as much as Texas. Jason, the state party needs money.
Yeah, and no doubt Natalie, the Republican, candidates need money as well, too. I mean, to have Trump on stage, who knows how to put on a show, is something they probably want right now, I would think, unless the economy, turns south. Gas prices continue to rise, et cetera.
Well, on that note of the economy, it sounds to me that, I'm not going to assume any financial trouble unless evidence really shows it. But having, prices for the Republican convention be sliced down in such a way shows to me that they're probably seeking out more donors than they are these larger checks. But, perception is everything. And I think those who oppose the Republican Party are going to look at this and say there isn't enough momentum behind this party, and they're going to have a field day with it.
Ashley, what do you read into this?
You don't want an empty stadium, an empty room when the president comes to speak. And people can't afford this right now. They cannot afford it. Point blank, period. You say if the economy sours. Jason, for a lot of people, it's already sour. And you want folks to be able to get in and participate and be a part of this. That means that you got to make it affordable for folks. They can't afford those prices.
Yeah, you're right about that, though. There's no way that this place is going to be empty or there'll be empty seats in there. They'll figure out a way to fill those seats, whether they raise money off of it or not. But before we go here, let me ask you about something that happened on Friday. Some people may not have realized. The ban on THC products, Delta 8, Delta 10, it went into effect on Friday, the 31st of July here. It's not great for the hemp industry, but will this impact Governor Abbott here? Final minutes.
When this was passed, it didn't seem like this was going to be such a close election. Now it seems like it's a point or two apart. That vote might hurt the Republicans, particularly Dan Patrick, Greg Abbott. I think the legislature is going to wish that they had delayed this going into effect until January.
Guys, thanks for the insight. We appreciate it. Thank you for watching as well. We're back next Sunday to take you inside Texas politics. We hope to see you then. Have a great weekend.